Okay, Chair, we're live on YouTube, so I'll hand over to you to start the meeting.
Thanks very much. So good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Property Working Panel on Monday, the 13th of November 2023. I'm your chair, Councillor Dan Ledger. I would like to welcome anyone watching this meeting via the live stream. The meeting can be viewed live online and will be recorded, so please bear this in mind throughout the meeting. Therefore, may I remind colleagues to be careful with their language and that code of conduct applies throughout our meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant disrupting the meeting by whatever means. As this meeting is dependent on an internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. If we are not able to reconnect after 15 minutes, we'll consider this meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for further details. Could colleagues please ensure your microphones are muted when you're not speaking? This will avoid any disturbance from background noise levels. Could you also please keep your points short and please do not interrupt when someone else is speaking. Should you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today and it can be viewed online at eastdevon.gov.uk. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of all members of the working panel. Can you please now unmute your mics, and when you hear your name, please confirm you're saying present. When you've confirmed you're present, please then mute your microphones again. So over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll start with yourself, Councillor Ledger, please.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Present, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Councillor Goodman.
Present, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin. Councillor Smith. Okay, Chair, can confirm that we're correct. Thank you.
So thanks very much. So agenda item 1 is apologies. So Sarah, can you just confirm the apologies for us, please?
Yes, of course. So we have apologies from Councillor Haggerty, Councillor Heath, Councillor Vixen, Councillor Bethany Collins, Councillor Arnott, and Councillor Ian Barlow, who isn't on the membership of the panel but wanted his apologies to be noted.
Okay, thanks very much. Agenda item 2 are the minutes of the previous meeting. Are we all happy with those? If you've got any comments, please raise your electronic hands. No, so I'll just take that those are received and accepted. Agenda item 3 are declarations of interest. So again, that will be done by a roll call, and it's over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. So yourself again, please, Councillor Ledger.
None that I'm aware of at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman, please.
None that I'm aware of, Sarah.
Thank you. And Councillor Goodman?
None that I'm aware of, Sarah.
Thank you. And are there any other councillors in the meeting who need to declare an interest for any of the items on this agenda, please? Okay, there are none. So I'll hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We then move on to public speaking. I understand there's no members of the public wishing to speak. Is that correct? Yeah. Agenda item 5, how East Devon are working with partners towards building financial resilience for our residents. And we've got a range of presentations. So Sharon? I can't see over
Thank
there.
you, Chair.
So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So this morning we wanted to give you an overview of how we've been able to help support our residents through the collaborative partnership working with some of our internal and external partners. We have Millie here, who is one of our financial resilience officers today, who's going to give you a bit more details about the work the team do. Some of our partners have kindly agreed to speak this morning as well. So we do have Exeter Private Sector Housing, Exeter Community Energy, South West Water and Citizens Advice East Devon, who are going to tell you what they do. And then Millie and myself will finish off with a case study of a resident we've all worked with and let you know about the work we will be focusing on over the next 6 months. So a bit of background to start off for anyone who isn't aware of what the financial resilience team do. We set the team up in late 2019 with the aim to identify and try to help resolve the underlying issues causing financial poverty or hardship for residents. We originally started with 1 officer, and as demand on the service continued to grow, we took on 3 further officers at different times and currently have 4 in post. The team administer the Household Support Fund, as well as having access to our discretionary funds to help support residents who are struggling financially. and they can utilise those pots, especially while work with appropriate partner agency is ongoing to solve underlying issues. The team don't just refer cases to partners, they actively work with them and the resident when required to ensure the issue does get resolved. We found that only referring or signposting didn't always achieve the result the resident needed, as they often have so much going on that they sometimes struggle to navigate everything. So we'd often see the same people come back around in the same position quite a few months, sometimes a year later. So by collaboratively working together, it does mean that we can help support those residents who are more vulnerable, navigate what they need to do to help them become more resilient going forward. We also have our close relationships with internal teams such as council tax, teams across housing and private sector housing. So I'm going to hand over to Millie now, who's going to tell you more about the team, what they do. So over to you, Millie.
Cool, thank you. I'm assuming everyone can hear me because my mic wasn't working when I first came in. Cool. Okay, I will just share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see the screen?
Not at the moment, Millie.
No, it is sharing, so I'll give it a second just in case. If not, Sarah, I have sent it over to you just in case. Any luck?
No, but I don't think I have it from you, Millie. Could you resend it, please?
Yeah, I can resend
Thank
it to you.
you.
That's absolutely fine. Bear with me. Let me just check.
Oh, it's just started sharing now.
It's just started sharing. Oh, amazing. That's always a bonus. Okay. Okay, perfect. So can everyone see it now?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so kind of just going on from what Sharon just kind of gave us a brief introduction. So there's 4 of us on the financial resilience team. So it's myself and then my colleagues Yona, Rebecca and Sam. So we're the financial resilience officers. We are also supported by 2 benefits assessors who, because we work within the revenues and benefits service, they've come over obviously to support us with applications to the Household Support Fund. So they deal with any emergency requests from the funds, and they also act as a sort of triage. So they identify anyone that may need a bit more help, might be in a bit more of a complex situation, and it's then those individuals that are sort of passed on to the financial resilience officers for some more ongoing work. So that's kind of a basic overview of how the team is functioning. And then in terms of sort of the ways that we can help once a resident has come through to a financial resilience officer. So we sort of support them, particularly the vulnerable residents, to help identify the underlying cause of the poverty that they're experiencing, and helping them find solutions to that. And one of the main ways we do this is we help them to maximise their income and minimise any expenditure. So we complete, the council has an income and expenditure form, which we tend to go through with the residents, and that kind of highlights any areas where some income might be missing, where there's problems with expenditure, particularly if there's benefits that aren't being claimed. We see that a lot with disability benefits. So a lot of people aren't aware they can be claiming person dependence payment, that they can be claiming extra additional units on their elements on their universal credit, like limited capability for work. So that just allows us to kind of highlight any issues that the resident might not be aware of, and just make sure we are addressing them. It does also often bring up other issues that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to identify. So particularly coming into winter, we might find that we have a discussion with someone because they're struggling with their energy bills, but the reason they're struggling with their energy bills is because their property isn't energy efficient, they've got damp and mold, and that then enables us to sort of highlight where we might be able to sort of help and work with that specialist support for those issues. So with the income and expenditure, we do find it just really useful, and the residents tend to find it useful as well, because a lot of the times they might not be aware of problems that are there on their budget. So, you know, we've had quite a few recently where gambling might be a bit of a problem, but the resident actually isn't aware of it at all, particularly with, you know, since everything going digital, a lot of people are spending money online and they're just not correlating that actually that is sometimes enabling a deficit to sort of form each month. So it's really useful for us to look at that. As Sharon briefly mentioned, we do also, as FROs, have access to our discretionary funding. So our exceptional hardship fund for council tax and our discretionary housing payments for rent. So we do also have access to these pots to sort of help the residents whilst we are trying to address the underlying reason of why they're struggling. And it is sort of one of our first ports of call will be to check their council tax account, check for council tax debt, check for any shortfall with council tax reduction, and the same with discussions of rent. So we will have a discussion whether people have rent arrears, whether there's a rent shortfall that the local housing allowance isn't covering, and that enables us to identify people who might have been unaware of that support previously. And obviously we can then assess it. We do also work collaboratively with other departments internally, so particularly housing. So we then are able to sort of cross-work with the resident to try and enable our funding to help prevent homelessness. So we get it quite a lot from our housing options team, where they've got someone who, you know, might have rent arrears, they're facing eviction, and we're able to then look at the discretionary housing payments and sort of help prevent any homelessness and any extra demand on the resident that is associated with that. We also have access to, as with our benefits assessors that deal with the initial approaches, we do also have access to our emergency pot. So we are able to help residents whilst we're working with them. So for example, if someone's waiting for their universal credit to kick in, we are able to help with like an emergency few weeks of food, or help with energy bills, just to make sure that they're not getting into any debt whilst the benefits are sorting out, or whilst we try and address other issues. So we do work collaboratively, not only with the residents, also with other internal departments and external partners that we've identified. And I'll go through that on the next slide, but just us being able to keep the cases, you know, all of us have our ongoing cases, and be able to work collaboratively, sort of on an ongoing basis, just lets us kind of feel confident and lets the resident feel confident that all the areas that they're struggling with have been addressed, and it just enables them to feel like they can engage with these services rather than feeling pressured or overwhelmed with the fact that they might not be able to on their own. So some of the people we work with, so we work with a wide range of organisations, as discussed, just to try and address those root causes of poverty. You know, a lot of the times what they're approaching for isn't actually the sole issue in the first place. So it is really, really useful to be able to work with these external organisations. And as Sharon was saying, we try not to just signpost and then leave them to it. Particularly where they feel very overwhelmed, it's really, really useful to have all these partners that we can liaise with, we can discuss cases with, just to make sure that the residents are engaging as much as they can. So, you know, we work with Exeter Community Energy, Citizens Advice, South West Water, all of whom I know are here today, various other charities, but we do sort of have communication with these organisations separately from just the residents. So we have, for example, monthly meetings with private sector housing and Exeter Community Energy, and that just allows us to identify any residents who maybe are struggling with engagement, or if any other issues have been identified, and it just allows us to really promote that joint working on particularly difficult cases, which, you know, often has a much better outcome for the resident. And the same with Citizens Advice and South West Water, we all have each other's sort of contact details, and we are able to discuss any concerns that we might have. So that just really allows us to collaboratively work and make sure that the referral is going well, rather than, like I say, signposting, and then if we've got someone that might struggle with engagement, we're just making sure we're combating that to make sure they're not excluded. We also have quite close working with a lot of our local food banks and a lot of our community groups. So for example, we go into Exmouth Food Bank on a regular basis, And that just kind of enables us to get out there in the community and make sure that we're picking up people who we might otherwise miss. So particularly sort of the demographic who are a bit more elderly or might be digitally excluded. We find it really, really useful to be able to go into the community and just kind of find pockets of poverty that we might not have identified otherwise, and just make sure that we are addressing, you know, in all the different towns and all the different areas, all the different age groups, that we are making sure that everyone has access to the support, particularly those, like I say, digitally excluded, mental health issues. Being in the community allows them to be in sort of a familiar situation, which we find really helps with engagement, that they might otherwise have not approached the council as such, but they are able to come to us through the food banks. So we also work a lot with internal departments across the council. So one of those, like I said, is private sector housing, who's here today. As mentioned previously, we have access to the council tax account, so we can work really, really closely with council tax. And we are also working very, very closely with our housings team. So as before, we can use our funding to help those facing homelessness, but also those taking on tenancies through our rentals team, those who might be concerned about moving through our allocations team. We are able to sort of work with them on an ongoing basis, just to make sure that, you know, they are engaging with everyone they should be, and enable us to really follow up with them and sort of speak on their behalf if they are feeling overwhelmed by things. We are also starting to go out more and more into the community to attend events and provide presentations. So for community groups that might not be aware of what we do. So we found that really, really helpful with setting up referrals, and again, just finding those demographics that we might not otherwise have been able to support. We're finding that really, really useful. And we're going out more and more at the moment just to try and get out there that people can refer into us. And it's just, you know, trying to help all these residents, identify everyone that we can, help them as much as possible. And as Sharon said at the beginning, it's really useful to be able to work collaboratively with all these teams, because, you know, it might be that, yes, we've helped with their emergency support for food, but subsequently we've actually helped them when they're taking on a tenancy for the first time, help them, you know, afford their energy bills, make sure their benefits are in place, make sure that they are in a position to maintain a tenancy, for example. It is just really, really useful to be able to work really closely with these teams, sort of for the benefits of the residents. So I think all of our partners that are here today are going to do some presentations. I think private sector housing maybe first, so I will pass over to Jodie.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just trying to
Sorry,
upload
Jodie. I should have introduced you there.
That's okay. It's no,
Whereas
I'm just trying
everyone
to.
just come in as and when. It's yeah.
Thank you, Chair, for inviting me. And sorry, I'm just trying to upload my presentation, which I'm hoping that you may be able to see fairly shortly.
Yeah, that's on screen.
Okay, great. Bear with me. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jodie Hardin. I'm the Principal Environmental Health Officer for Private Sector Housing. I have responsible for 3 work areas. East Devon has one of the highest amount of private water supplies in the country. About over 10% of our residents are on a private water supply, so they don't get mains water. And we do risk assessments and sampling on that private water supplies. I also have the Housing Improvement Enforcement team, headed by a range of environmental health and technical officers, with the aim of improving general housing conditions within East Devon. My third workflow is the Better Care Fund, the distribution of about £1 million per year for home improvements and adaptations for disabled residents within East Devon. Today I want to talk about our working together with a range of internal and external partners to help and support our residents through the financial resilience team. And I'm just going to share a very brief case study and then go on to explain what we do in a bit more detail, why we do it and how we do it. So do bear with me. So we were approached by the financial resilience team with a case where a tenant had, in the private rented sector, had been issued a Section 21 notice, a no fault eviction effectively. The resident had come through financial resilience team, and we get a referral for a home visit because the resident mentions some damp and mold at the property. An environmental health officer visited the property and met the tenant. And this is one of the photographs from that visit. It's a tumble dryer in the hallway of their rented property. Next to the tumble dryer is a dehumidifier. So the tumble dryer was just basically discharging its condensation into the hallway of the family's home. And on inspection, this was causing increased condensation and causing damp and mold within the property, affecting the children's health. During the conversation, it also discovered that the children were being bullied at school. They were going to school with clean school uniform, and the tenant was washing and drying their clothes every day at home. They only had one set of school uniform, but because they were unable to dry the school uniform properly, it was starting to smell of damp and mold, and that sort of musty smell. So the children we found were being bullied at school. On inspection, we also found that there was electrical and fire safety issues, and we wanted to obviously get these fixed as quickly as possible. And there was obviously areas of general disrepair, excuse me. And again, talking to the tenant, we found that they weren't able to use the heating system that had been provided by the landlord, as they hadn't really been told or explained how to use the heating system. So we, using our sort of enforcement, we actually engaged the landlord and really explained what was going on the property, and they came out and joined us on that joint visit. And they discovered that during the refurbishment of the flat, they hadn't they'd provided space for the tumble dryer, but hadn't actually correctly fitted the kitchen. So the landlord was a bit shocked by this, and they arranged for the kitchen work surface to be arranged, the tumble dryer to be sort of plumbed into the kitchen properly so that it extracted straight out into the atmosphere as correctly, so that we could be able to reduce the amount of condensation and damp and mold in the property. On the day, the landlord was also able to explain to the tenant how to use the heating system, so that when they left and when we left, they were able to use that effectively. The landlord immediately sorted out the electrics and got the electrical safety certificate, and they installed the smoke alarms. They also agreed to redecorate and make sure that they cleaned the mold off the walls and repaired the walls, as we can see here. This demonstrated really the different roles that each of the council services has. This is an ideal situation where as the housing officers, we can deal with the place. I can't necessarily help with that individual tenant with the cost of their fuel bills or looking at their benefits. And this is where working with financial resilience and Exeter Community Energy really helps us engage with that particular tenant to make sure that when we leave, they have the support of our external and internal partners. I'm going to just move on. This is our council plan, Better Homes and Communities for All. And the private sector housing has very detailed responsibilities within the council's constitution. And we're able to provide a wide range of grants to residents through our constitution. We have the Disabled Facility Grants, which is funded through the Better Care Fund. This is targeted at particularly disabled visitors, residents, and which we're able to do home improvements and adaptations. We also work with self-neglect and hoarding cases and are able to provide a wide range of grants. We also support and run with our partners in Devon County Council the HUG2, which is the Home Upgrade Grant, which is for off-gas residents to make first-time improvements and retrofit installation to their homes. We also have signed up for the Energy Company Obligation Variation 4, and this provides low-income families with another grant to retrofit and install first-time central heating, and to move from the reliance on gas or oil to renewables. Our further information for councillors and residents is on the private sector housing websites, where we have information about how to access HUG2 and ECO4. Again, working with our partners in Exeter Community Energy, it just means that our residents are able to access these grants fairly quickly once it's identified that that they're eligible. And Tara will be able to talk about these particular grants when Tara talks in the next couple of minutes. So again, we're not really relying on the residents to be signposted. It means that once they're referred into Exeter Community Energy, they'll be sort of automatically put forward if they're entitled to any grants that they may be eligible for. The aim of the private sector housing team is to improve the condition of housing within the private sector through East Devon. We do that by a range of informal and formal inspections through the council constitution with our environmental health officers. When we do a disabled facility grant, our grants team will also be looking at financial resilience, so working with that disabled person to make sure they're accessing benefits, and they get a referral into Exeter Community Energy, and if necessary into Devon and Somerset fire and fire rescue teams that will do also a home visit to install pre-smoke alarms. So again, when we engage with a tenant, either through a requirement to undertake an investigation or through a disabled facility grant, we're still able to offer our residents a holistic approach, so that they're able to make sure that they're having access to all eligible funding available to them. We're also working with tenants and landlords to give advice and information. And as is said, we have a wide range of financial assistance. We have just over about £1 million in terms of the capital grants. And we also fund Lendology, the council's low-cost loans company. Lendology have an element of our capital to provide home improvements to residents that are eligible for a loan. And this can be a wide range from improvements to their roof, it could be retrofit projects, it could be energy efficiency measures. So that we try to offer any kind of loan for any home improvement to our residents that are homeowners that are eligible for these small grants. The loans are usually a value between £10,000 and £15,000, and we're able to make sure that those residents that have accessed those loans are able to undertake those works for emergency repairs as well. We also have a range of enforcement tools, which range from an emergency prohibition order through to basically a notice on homeowners that they've got hazards in their properties. We consider that enforcement and enforcement agencies is really the last thing we want to be doing, because we want to be able to engage and change influence within our landlords so that they're making better choices and improving their overall energy efficiency of their homes, and making good decisions about improving their assets. And as I say, the last resort is the prosecution of those landlords. If we need to, we will undertake those. The latest data on the financial resilience referrals, we received 148 referrals in the financial year 2022 to 23. In the first 6 months of this financial year, we've had 99 referrals into private sector housing. So this means that we've been able to engage with a wide range of landlords that we may not have otherwise engaged with. So the information that Financial Resilience and Exeter Community Energy are providing to us just means that we have more information coming into the team about the conditions of the properties within East Devon and also our landlords. Not only we're looking at improving the conditions of the house, we're also looking at improving the energy efficiency. The relationship between improved housing and health, mental health and physical health is well documented. And by providing energy efficient homes means that our tenants and our residents are paying less in fuel and living in a healthier, warmer and safer home. We're able to support our residents living in fuel poverty through making these energy efficiency measures. And we have those wide range of grants and practical advice that we're able to provide. One of the aims of the team is obviously to restore and enable independent living, privacy, confidence and dignity for disabled families and individuals that are living in East Devon. We also try to aim to reduce the carbon footprint of our energy, the residents' houses as well. So not only do we report into the Poverty Reduction Panel, we report into the Public Health Strategy and the Climate Change Strategy. And finally, I just wanted to cover some of the advantages of working together with internal and external partners. Again, the private sector housing is really aimed at looking after the place. So that is our main role, is improving the housing conditions. And working together with Financial Resilience and Exeter Community Energy just means that they're supporting the person. And the person and the place obviously are linked together very importantly in their home. So on a monthly meetings that we have, we're able to have a holistic approach. So we're able to come together and discuss individual cases to make sure that those residents and tenants are engaging with us and making sure that everybody is making those referrals if need be. So that could be, from our point of view, a safeguarding referral, or it may be that it needs to go to, again, Devon and Somerset Fire, or any other agency that we feel that should be involved with a particular individual. One of the main advantages is that we're adding value. And another example from a private sector housing point of view is during the damp and mold season. So that's from October, November through to March, where we get an increase in complaints about damp and mold in properties. We're not just signposting those individuals, but we're actually engaging with those tenants and residents with Financial Resilience and Exeter Community Energy. And that will help them look at their benefits. Perhaps it may be that they're actually able to heat their homes, and we're able to give them advice and ensure that the landlord is doing their statutory duties. At this time of limited resources, it just means that we're able to look at funding streams to get projects funded. We're also fairly able to come together and work really closely to make sure that all our resources are pulled together and that they're sort of shared equally. We also are able to exchange information and ideas so that we're making improved decision making. so that we're able to share training. We get to understand each and everyone's responsibilities, and we come together and share and explain what we're doing, and so there's greater understanding. We're able to share training and learning opportunities as well. Which also means that when we come together, all our responsibilities can be shared. We're supporting those residents effectively. Finally, we're working with financial resilience, building control over the quality of the housing. East Devon Housing, Property and Assets and Estate Management come to the monthly meetings so that we're able to engage with tenant repairs. So they do the equivalent of private sector housing, but within East Devon Housing. So they'll look at their repair schedule for council tenants. And again, we're going to hear from Tara at Exeter Community Energy, and we make referrals into Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue. That's the end of my presentation. I hope that the panel have found that interesting. If you have any questions, then please do contact me. And the team can be contacted through pshousing@eastdevon.gov. If you have any particular concerns about any residents, then Financial Resilience have a report it form through their web pages at the beginning in the hub, I understand. So again, any referrals could come through one-stop shop into Financial Resilience, where it will then be escalated to private sector housing and Exeter Community Energy. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for that, Jodie. Really appreciated. I think at this point, if there are any questions, I know Councillor Rylance did ask a question. I just don't want to lose any of the points if we go through 5 different presentations. So are there any other questions for either Millie or Jodie at this point? So Councillor Rylance, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Dan. So I had a question. First of all, I wanted to really commend your team for the focus on damp, because I think that's one of the most health damaging things that we have going on in our housing stock. And I wanted to go back to the example you cited of that lady with her inadequately plumbed in tumble dryer. Do you think that without your intervention that the landlord would ever have got round to doing that work, or do you think that part of our work has been absolutely crucial in getting that done? Because if that's the case, then we're going to have to interact with a lot of landlords who maybe aren't totally on top of their properties. Do you feel like you have enough staff to cope with that work? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. It is really important to engage the landlords with their property, make sure that they're actually engaged with that. I think the interventions of our officers was really important in this case. The landlord hadn't inspected their own property, so ideally any private landlord should be inspecting their property every 6 months, and we're working with our landlords to get that message out. It is their responsibility to maintain and look after their own property. And in this case, it would have been really simple for the landlord, firstly, to have, within the first week, explained to the tenant how to use the central heating system. That to us would have been crucial. And then they would have picked up that the tumble dryer was being used. It was wholly inadequate. Again, we would be expecting that landlord to check that when the kitchen was refurbished, that either a tumble dryer could have been plumbed in, or in theory should have been plumbed in by the landlord. So it's those really, really simple checks that the tenant would have felt uncomfortable, perhaps threatened by not raising those directly with the landlord. And I think that's where we come in with those interventions. The resourcing of the team, we've just managed to appoint our second environmental health officer. That took 18 months to fill. There is a recruitment crisis within the private sector in terms of environmental health officers. We've now got a full complement of officers. Again, it's about how we effectively plan our resources. So we're now in damp and mold season, which means that we've cleared our workload in preparation for the damp and mold season, and we start making sure that we have the resources available for the winter season. And then we go back to project works in sort of the spring and summer. And it's this time of year that we're picking up that damp and mold projects. It is quite slow at the moment, interestingly. We're thinking that, again, our tenants aren't coming forward. They feel that they don't want to upset their landlords due to the cost of private rented sector. They don't want to, in theory, lose their homes. There's obviously a huge discussion around the fact that they're going to be doing, the government's going to be doing away with no fault evictions, the Section 21s. So I think that tenants have gone back to not wanting to report their landlords to us.
Thanks very much for that, Jody. Councillor Smith, Rylance and Martin, I know you joined late. Do you have any declarations that you wish to make at this time?
I don't have any.
Thanks, Chair.
No? Okay. So we'll move on to Councillor Smith, please.
Another question for you, Jody, if that's okay. Do you have all the enforcement power that you need? I know that you say it's a last resort. Do you feel like you've got everything you need in terms of enforcement power?
We're going to get some more enforcement power under the Renters Reform Bills, where we're going to have the duty to act. The Housing Act is very comprehensive, and it at the moment fits in with everything that we need to achieve. So yeah, we do have a wide-ranging legislation to respond to most cases, and in terms of horizon scanning, the Renters Reform Bill, which obviously was included in the King's Speech, is due to take place. It will really depend on how much lobbying is done by those professional renters, and it's going to be an interesting couple of years if that comes on board. So we're watching this space. But yes.
Thank you. Councillor Bloxham, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you, because I'm not sure actually who out of the two presentations would answer this. But thank you both for the excellent presentations. Obviously, with my Cranbrook ward member hat on, I have got some Cranbrook specific questions here. We have a very young community in Cranbrook with high numbers of social housing and a lot of first-time homeowners. And how are Cranbrook benefiting from the support at East Devon without having any East Devon council homes? Are you, for example, liaising with the specific housing associations? We do also have a Cranbrook food bank. I hope you're aware of that and you are liaising with them as well. And also we do have obviously specific heat provision from E.ON Heat. And are we aware of the residents in Cranbrook and whether they're in fuel poverty with E.ON Heat or not? So a number of questions there, Dan, but I hope somebody can help me along with those.
Okay. Who wants to tackle that one?
I could talk about private sector housing in Cranbrook. Again, because of the new construction of Cranbrook, we get very little complaints about Cranbrook, mainly because of the recent construction. So I'm not best placed to answer your specific questions, unfortunately, but we get very few complaints. I don't know whether financial resilience would have.
I can give it a go. Yeah, so in terms of in Cranbrook, so as you said, there is a food bank in Cranbrook. We are in contact with them, so we try and keep in touch with all of the food banks across all of the towns. So we do have referral links with the food bank, and they obviously will highlight any particular concerns they've got. In terms of people being able to come through to us, I'd say we do still get the residents from Cranbrook, particularly anyone I've got in Cranbrook. E.ON Heat does quite often come up in the discussions, and quite often that might be one of the reasons why they come to us in the first place. So they hear about the support with food or with energy bills, and then on the discussions it's actually that E.ON Heat's the problem, or when they've just moved in they're struggling to manage everything. So we definitely are in contact with a few residents from Cranbrook. I mean, whether there's anything we could do, if there's anything else that anyone's aware of that we might be able to get out there to actively sort of make them aware of what we offer, but we definitely do have a lot of contact with the residents in Cranbrook. and with housing associations. We don't obviously just deal with council tenants through our team, so anyone that approaches us will offer them the same support. We look at the same eligibility. It's not just for council tenants.
Thank you very much. Kim, Sounds, question?
Yeah, can I just come back on that, Dan? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, and that's most helpful. Perhaps, Millie, we could have a conversation afterwards, because I think there is a bit more we could do to just let people know that you are there and can help. And Eon Heat would be a specific one, because I am aware that I've had some numbers regarding fuel poverty, and I think maybe we can do a bit more work with Eon Heat. So perhaps we can just have a chat offline. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my manager Sharon's in the meeting as well, so I'm sure she'll want to come in on that one as well.
Just about to say that, I'll bring Sharon in as well. Okay, sorry. Tara Bowers, you're listed down next. Sorry for keeping you waiting.
Not a problem at all. Thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting to talk about our work. I've got a short presentation to share, which hopefully will work. Can we see that okay?
Yeah, we can see that.
Great. I'm Tara Bowers. I'm one of the volunteer directors that runs Exeter Community Energy, and my day job is actually also working with Exeter Community Energy. I run all of our energy efficiency projects, including Healthy Homes for Wellbeing, which is the main one that we link in with East Devon District Council at the moment. We also run new retrofit projects, which are too new to talk about at the moment, but maybe at another time I can give you some more information about how that's working for council residents. So just a bit of background, because I'm conscious maybe some of the participants today don't really know what Exeter Community Energy is or what we do. So we started in 2014, and we were an offshoot from Transition Exeter. There were a group of people who wanted to do some physical projects around energy in Exeter. This was all around renewable energy, and in particular, the team at that time looked at solar rooftop projects. So we run a community-owned energy model. So we currently own 10 rooftop projects in and around Exeter. We do have one in East Devon, which is on the rooftop of the Beehive at Honiton. And the way community-owned energy works is individuals like you and I invest in Exeter Community Energy. That money is pooled to pay for the installation of the solar panels on community buildings, and the occupants of those buildings then buy cheap energy from us rather than the full energy rate that they get from energy suppliers. And we sell surplus energy to the grid. Now, once we've paid for all of our overheads, we pay a 5% dividend back to our community shareholders. And if we have any surpluses at the end of the year, excuse me, we give that back to the community by way of a community fund. So other small charities and organisations can apply to us for grants for energy projects in the community. So that's just a short summary about where we started. In 2017, we launched the Healthy Homes for Wellbeing project, which was all around supporting people in fuel poverty, and in particular looking at those who are more vulnerable and susceptible to health issues in their homes. As Jodie mentioned earlier, there is lots of well-documented evidence about the link with poor health and poor housing. So our then chair and chief exec was really keen on us doing some work to try to improve this situation in our communities. This project is fully funded. It's not anything we have money to deliver ourselves. We apply for grants each year from a whole range of funders, including East Devon District Council have funded us in the past and currently. So thank you very much to the council for supporting our work. So the reason we do it is twofold. Is really Exeter Community Energy is focused on carbon reduction. That's our reason for being, is we want to help tackle climate change by reducing carbon emissions. But of course, this goes hand in hand with supporting fuel poverty, because if we can reduce consumption by making changes in the home, or by giving energy saving advice, or by doing the bigger measures that have already been mentioned around retrofitting homes through grants or improvements, we're tackling both of those things at the same time. For us, this is really important that we can do this, that we can make a really big impact both on carbon consumptions and fuel poverty. So despite our name, Exeter, we do actually work in 5 districts across southern Devon for our work. So we, as well as Exeter and East Devon, we're covering Mid Devon, Teignbridge and Torbay for our fuel poverty and energy advice work. We're one of 5 groups in Devon that do this work, so the whole of the county is covered. And the 5 groups work as a very strong collaboration with Energy Saving Devon, which is run by Devon County Council. And the Energy Saving Devon partnership encompasses also all of the district councils in the county, as well as Torbay and Plymouth as unitary authorities. And we also pull in trading standards and public health into those discussions. So it's a really strong collaboration around improving homes and protecting residents, basically. For us ourselves, for our project, we've got a really big team now, 16 home energy advisors and community engagement officers. We have 2 home energy advisors and 1 community engagement person working permanently in East Devon for us. And they're supported by not only project support officers and managers, but also benefits advisors in-house and our own debt advice team. We also now have a really strong retrofit team who are helping deliver to deliver some of the grants that have already been mentioned, the home upgrade grants with Devon County Council, which I'll touch on again in a moment. We've also been delivering for the last 2 years a new volunteer programme called Community Energy Champions. This is where we train up key residents. That might be somebody running a community centre or somebody in a workplace. Sometimes in other areas we've delivered this training with wellbeing teams, and also South West Water have had this training from us too. So this is in-depth energy champion training to try and help people across the community be better informed about the solutions available around energy improvements. There's a lot of myths out there, so by encouraging volunteers to get involved, we can hopefully spread the word more diversely across the community to ensure people know how to access the support available and also can make some simple changes in their homes to reduce fuel poverty. And if you'd like more information about that, I will talk to you offline because there isn't time today to go into that in any detail. So how we deliver our energy advice service is quite broad. Basically, like was mentioned just now, is we also help any tenure. We're not restricted to homeowners. We will help social housing and private tenants as well. And our advice will range from general advice through to a home visit. We conduct a full in-depth energy assessment either by telephone or at the home visit. And some of our home visits are delivered under the LEAP project. LEAP is a national service which is funded by energy companies. And we are blessed to be one of the long-standing partners with LEAP, which means we have extra funding to be able to deliver home visits out in the community. And the home visits are absolutely the best way for us to help people, as Jodie's case study demonstrated. If you're in the home, you can see the problems and you can help people physically with their needs. Similarly with the heating controls, that's something we do a lot, is show people how to actually set their heating controls, which there's no way we can do that by telephone. We absolutely have to be there in person to show them that. We also have a programme of annual aftercare calls. There are many services and charities that can only offer limited support to residents. We've chosen not to do that. We actively seek extra funding to be able to help people ongoing. Energy problems aren't going to disappear overnight for people. They're going to keep coming back as the energy sector changes and moves. It's moving really fast paced at the moment. So there's some massive changes coming down the line around different types of heating and the way we manage our energy supply. So we need to be on hand to help, particularly the vulnerable and more challenged members of our society through this smart transition, as it's called. So we don't just drop people after the first intervention. We're there to help them ongoing. And the way we reach people in the community is multifaceted. We'll do our own drop-in clinics around the district. We give many talks and attend many events, some of those with the partners here present. We can also run energy cafes on Zoom if that suits group betters. The champions I've mentioned. And then the other thing we do is we work with a lot of the frontline worker teams across the the district to build referral partnerships. And this is what works best for us. And this is why it's so amazing for us to be working with the financial resilience team, is that they are finding and highlighting these most vulnerable people at an early stage and referring them to us so that we can make some quick interventions, get in their homes as quickly as possible and help solve the problems. If we didn't have referral partnerships, we would be reaching far fewer people and we would be doing far less work in the district. So referral partnerships is absolutely key and paramount to us. So I expect you're wondering what we actually do on an assessment. So here's a short summary of some of the key things that we do. As has already been mentioned, it's very much a holistic service. We feel we're absolutely blessed to be in somebody's property. There are not many charities and organisations that get an opportunity to attend a home. So we're trying to be the eyes and ears for many services while we're there. So first and foremost for us is we're looking at the property itself. Does it need extra insulation? Are there drafts that need sorting? Are there damp and mold problems? Are there other hazards, of which we find many? And if we find any of these problems, we'll do our utmost to try to solve them. So with drafts, we can try to fit draft proofing on the spot. With insulation, we'll look for grants to improve the home, and hazards we can make, obviously, the relevant referrals onto the appropriate teams, including Jodie's team. And we look at the heating system. Is it appropriate for the property? Does it need improving? Again, through grants. Do they know how to work the system, etc.? And again, we will just make sure that people have the best knowledge possible to keep themselves warm in their homes through the winter. We do a big session on bills and money with them. This could be meter readings, showing them how to use their smart meter controls, looking at their tariffs and discounts, talking to them about water saving, and also running benefits checks or debt support if that hasn't already been picked up by a previous team. A big section on behaviour. We've got a whole list of 75 energy saving tips. We don't go through all 75 with each resident, obviously, as they wouldn't engage with us to that level. But we do, as part of the conversations, try to pick up maybe 5 to 10 really key energy saving tips that will save them money and show them how to get best use in their home. And then on an actual home visit, we will fit measures on the spot. So this could be LED light bulbs, radiator panels behind radiators, smart plugs, draft proofing. We have tumble dryer balls now as standard stock because that saves 20-minute drying time when using a tumble dryer. And we also carry heated blankets as permanent stock now to help people. I've mentioned a few of the referrals. One of the biggest referrals that we make is through to the grant schemes. So that's both the HUG2 scheme, which is run by Devon County Council, of which East Devon is part of. That's for off-gas properties with an household income below 31,000. And the Eco4 scheme, which is funding through the energy company obligation. We work with some dedicated installers in Devon to progress those grants too. We don't just do the referrals on those, we handhold the residents through the process, making sure that we get the best solutions for them at the end of the day. We're also making referrals to Lendology if clients don't qualify for grants, hazards, disabled facility grants, fire safety, work very closely with South West Water and many other organisations that we refer on to. We also have some special schemes available throughout the year. We have a broken gas boiler scheme through LEAP at the moment. We have multiple white goods schemes available, including one that we run with Financial Resilience team at East Devon. Multiple fuel voucher schemes. I counted up last week, we've got 10 at the moment. So if people need help paying their energy bills, we've got lots of ways to help them. And we also have our own hardship fund here at Exeter Community Energy, which we have donations throughout the year from residents. And that means that if there's anything that crops up that we can't solve through other normal channels, other grant schemes, we can at least try to help them through our own hardship fund. And I just pulled together a few statistics for you. This is the total number of people we helped last year, and so far this year, it's phenomenal numbers. A good proportion of these are coming through East Devon private sector housing and the financial resilience teams. I would say probably at least a third of these are coming through from the council, which is really great to see. And the rest of the residents are contacting us either directly by telephone or email through our website, or we're meeting them at the clinics and events that I mentioned. And we've got some estimated savings there from the work that we do. It is only estimated, unfortunately, because a lot of it does depend on individual housing performances. But the statistics that the data that we use comes from the Energy Saving Trust, so it's fairly robust. So we're fairly confident in the amount of savings. So last year, as you can see, it was almost £500,000 in energy savings for the properties that we helped, which is an amazing output for us. Just in case you have any residents in your areas that need help, residents can contact us on our 0800 number at any time or email us. And on our website there is a referral form. So please feel free to direct residents to us if they need help on any energy related matter. We'd be very happy to help them. And I think that's the end of my presentation. Obviously, we're just really, really happy and pleased to be working with East Devon District Council. It's been a long-standing relationship for about 2 years, I think now, Sharon. And as Jodie mentioned, the monthly meetings that we have are absolutely phenomenal for us to be able to really dig deeper into individual problems and find solutions collectively. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much. That's really interesting. We'll next come to Lorraine Whitting from South West Water. So Lorraine, over to you.
Hi, and it's Lorraine Whiting. Sorry, everyone says Whitting.
Apologies.
Okay. No, that's okay. I'm going to try and share my screen if I can. I'm hoping it will share.
I've written this, MRJR refresh. What do I mean?
I'm hoping everybody can see that.
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, amazing. Here at South West Water, what we've done is we've created what we call a partnership hub. We've recently put together a new team where we're offering holistic support for our more vulnerable customers through our affordability and our welfare services. This doesn't just stop with us sort of talking to customers over the phone. We're actually attending events, actually going into the community itself. We work very closely with our partnerships, especially Tara and Millie and others like themselves. We've managed to put together really nice bonds with the partnerships where they can directly refer customers to us, or they can tell us about an event they've got going on and we can attend. What we're doing is we've created a partnership hub in the hope of getting the partners to work with us, whether it be they refer through the hub or whether it be that they come to us direct or they send customers to an event. What we're trying to do is we're trying to offer support for customers to bring people out of water poverty. So by doing so, what we look at is we check that they're receiving all the benefits that they should be receiving. We make sure they're on the right tariff. And we carry out home water and energy audits. That's done through an outside company. It's free of charge, but it can take up to 28 days for someone to get in contact with them. And we can install simple water saving devices. We can also, if a customer is particularly vulnerable, we can do a home visit if needs be. We try to minimise those as much as we can because at the moment we're still only a small team. I think when the team was first formed, I think I was the only one actually at the time. I think it was very limited. I think we're now on 7 people within the team. That's how much it's taken off what we're doing. What we're looking at is making sure that all of our customers that are referred into us will come through the hub, are assessed for a tariff to see whether or not they're eligible. Then what happens is we look at the other aspects of the account. Are they in debt? Do they need to be on priority services? Is there anything else we can do to support that customer? We also, if we're interacting with the partnerships, we see whether or not there's any events we can attend. If so, then that means that we can interact with our customers face to face. We can introduce ourselves to more partnerships and we can kind of get ourselves a little bit more out there. What we do is we offer several different tariffs. Our first one is our water care tariff. It's an in-house tariff. And what it does is it works out the 5% of the equivalised income on their household water bill. Customers would be eligible for 5 different rates of tariff. So it would be 15, 25, 50, 75 or 85%. on their water and sewage charges. The only criteria that we have here is that they must be on a water meter or an assessed charge. We must have all of their income, their rents, and how many people are in the property. And after housing costs, the equalised income must be less than £295. What we would then do is we would look at the last time their water meter was read, and we can backdate for up to a year for any of those charges. We then go on to our Watersure tariff, which is a government initiated tariff. We don't have any control over that. It is put in place for people that have a large family of 3 or more children under the age of 19 in full-time education and receiving child benefit for, or if there's a medical condition within the property. Now, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's there. We are aware now that mental health can affect people's water usage, especially if they've got OCD or autism or anything like that. It can affect how they use their water. The criteria again is that it must be on a water meter or an assessed charge, and someone in the household must be in receipt of a means tested benefit. That's income support, job seekers allowance, ESA, housing benefit, child tax credit, pension credit, working tax credit, or universal credit. We will take it on as a case-by-case basis. So if somebody does put a referral through or applies, we would look at their case by case rather than just sort of lump people into sort of one umbrella. So even if you're not sure whether or not somebody qualifies, please don't hesitate to put them through or get them to apply. The reason I say that is because just because we may not be able to put them on a tariff doesn't mean we can't support them in other ways. So I always say put them through anyway. There are other forms of debt relief as well that we're offering customers now. We have a scheme called our Fresh Start scheme, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It fresh starts a customer's account. They have to have been new to debt within the last 2 years, whether it be an extraordinary life event or there's a reason why they've got themselves into debt, whether it be that they lost their job during COVID, weren't able to keep up with the payments, breakdown of a relationship, death of a partner. There's other reasons that people, illness, there's lots of reasons why people fall into debt. If we can see that they've been trying to keep up with the payments, or obviously the mitigating circumstances have meant that they can't, we look at these accounts case by case again, assess the account and see what else we can do. So first and foremost, we would do an assessment to see whether or not they're eligible for a tariff, backdate the tariff as far as we can, and then we would go from there and have a look for them. As long as they can afford their ongoing charges, and they're aware that once Fresh Start is applied, it's a one-off allowance. It won't be applied again. That's kind of how we would work with that one. Again, they would need to be on a meter or an assessed charge, or even the rateable value for this one, because it doesn't matter if they're a homeowner or a tenant. It's done based on exactly, the circumstances. We then move on to our second debt relief scheme, which is our Restart. This is a match-by-match payment scheme. So for every £1 that a customer pays, we pay £1 for the first 13 weeks. So this is for customers that have been in debt for the last sort of 6 to 12 months on. They must be a tenant. So we can't offer Restart for customers that are homeowners, unfortunately, at the present time, because obviously we can put a debt relief order on the property. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage customers to start getting into healthy payment habits. So if Fresh Start can't be applied, Restart would be our next point of call. What it does is it means that the customer pays that ongoing charge. So say, for instance, they were put onto Watersure. Watersure is £8.50 a week. So we would then set up the Restart for £8.50 a week. It doesn't matter how many accounts they've got with us, how far the debt goes across the accounts. We would clear the oldest debt first, but make sure they were paying their ongoing charges. So it would just keep chipping away at the debt. For the first 13 weeks, it's £1 for every £1 they pay. The second, it's £1.50. The third is £2, and then it goes to the final phase, which is £2.50, and it stays on £2.50 until all the debts are paid across the accounts. It's really done to encourage the customer to start getting into a nice, healthy payment habit again, and to sort of almost kind of like reward them for like making payments on their account. What we would say is if customer has had 3 previous attempts at Restart, possibility is we would need to know why they failed those 3 attempts. Is it due to the mitigating circumstances? Is there something else going on? You know, it would then alert us to another problem that might be possible in the property. So our job doesn't stop just because we're assessing a customer's account. We generally try to look at all the other things that are there as well. And if we feel that a customer needs to be referred, say for instance, they mentioned that they are worried about their heating costs, we would then refer them to Tara or sort of send them a link so that they can refer themselves. Or if they were in sort of East Devon District Council's area, you know, we might make a phone call or pop an email over to say, we're a little bit worried about this customer. Is there a chance you could pick it up, or give them a call? You know, so we kind of all interact together and we all work together, which is really, really nice. And this is what this team has been put together for. We've got our priority services listing as well. What that means is we would put customers on a free of charge priority services listing. We would offer them a telephone call to let them know that an interruption to their supply is going to happen. We've got a password scheme. We can offer to read their meter. You know, there's all sorts of things we can do. It's all done to make sure that that customer is completely comfortable with what's happening. Even if they've got poor eyesight, what we can then do is we can send them larger print bills, or we can get somebody to give them a call every time their bill's due and give them a bill reading. So there's lots of things we can do to support customers outside of just making payments. We've also got flexible payment plans, so we can do monthly, weekly, fortnightly, all sorts of things we can do for the customer just to make sure that everything's paid, that it's affordable, and you know that they're fully aware of how they can make payments. As I said before, we can do a benefit entitlement check. We've also got our water meter and efficiency kits as well. So if a customer's not on a water meter, we can do a free survey to assess whether or not they can have a water meter installed. They've then got 2 years once that starts to then revert back to the rateable value if they're not happy with the water meter. If they can't have a water meter installed, we would then offer them an assessed charge to make it sort of more affordable for them. It goes by person to person. So if there was 1, 2, or multiple people within the property, that's how much the assessed charge would be based on. So it's always important for us to know how many people are within the property. We do find that a lot of customers that are on rateable value, and when they go onto a water meter, are better off because the rateable values weren't set by ourselves. So we have no control over that. If at any stage anybody wanted to work with us, they can do. Please don't hesitate to drop me an email, or, you know, ask anyone for the email address to contact us. I'd be more than happy to arrange a Teams meeting with anybody and sort of send them all the links that they need. We've got lots of useful resources here with telephone numbers on our hub. Not just that, there we go. We also on our hub have a come and meet us. So this tells you where we're going to be. So today, the 13th of November, get right down the bottom there. The 13th of November, well, tomorrow everyone's in Plymouth. Yeah, everyone's in Plymouth tomorrow, but today we're obviously in Tavistock. Oh, sorry, on the 11th we were in Tavistock. So there's lots of places that we are. As you can see, we're all over the southwest. We go from Bournemouth right the way down to Land's End. We've now got somebody in the Cornwall area, and we've got another member within our area. So that means that we can sort of get to more places, get to more customers, get more, you know, get sort of in with our communities more and more and more, which is what we're trying to do at the moment. Like I said, if there's anything that you guys wanted to ask or any questions, please feel free to do so.
Thanks very much. Is there any way you could stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Thank you. So does any members have any questions for Lorraine or Tara before we move on? No, all silence. So next up, if I'm not wrong, it's Dean Stewart from Citizens Advice. So Dean, over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm just trying to find the right screen share. Let's do the whole screen. Right, so where has PowerPoint gone? Okay. Are we there, Chair?
I think we are, yeah.
Excellent. Right, welcome. Good morning, everybody. we're Citizens Advice. We're very proud to work with East Devon. Got a very good working relationship with the financial resilience team. Firstly, a little introduction. Citizens Advice is sometimes slightly misunderstood. We are not a government body and we are not a national charity. We are a small independent local charity in East Devon. Our funding comes from East Devon District Council, Devon County Council, town councils, other grants and donations. And our mission is not to fix everyone and solve everybody's problems. Our mission is to offer free and impartial information and advice, which enables people to make their own way forward and find their own solutions. We're also very much involved in campaigning and research to highlight unfairness and injustice where people don't have a voice. And so, for example, across Devon, we've worked on campaigns to try and get local housing allowances changed. We've worked on prepayment meters a lot last year and other campaigns where people as individuals don't have the power to make changes. We are a volunteer-led organisation. We've got 10 staff, about 6 FTEs. We've just taken on 2 work experience students from Exeter College for a year, and we're advertising for an apprentice debt advisor. And we've got 37 volunteers who range from receptionists to fully qualified advisors. We've got an office in Honiton, we've got an office in Exmouth, and we have outreaches across the region. We are in Seaton Hospital, for example. We're in the High Street in Sidmouth and the Youth Club in Sidmouth. We're in Pippins in Axminster, joining with the Job Club. And we rotate with East Devon at Exmouth Food Bank. We do a Friday morning every week, and we alternate Tuesday afternoons with the FR team. I'll share the slides later. I'm happy for you to send them out to whoever needs them. So don't try and read every little number on the screen because there's some very small numbers. But for the year so far, we've seen, well, now we would have seen just over 3,000 clients. This was the end of October. These are clients that develop into cases. We have a lot of quick client contacts, which is where, and we do get this in a Honiton office, people walk in and say, do you know what time Boots opens or when is the next bus? We don't count them. The quick client contacts are people that come in and say, can you tell me which website I need to go to or where is a form for this? We give them the form, they leave. So nearly 3,000 clients have actually become proper cases. We've had to do some work and investigate, and they have raised 8,500 issues. Now, those issues, the most common ones by a long way are benefits. Roughly a third of our clients have got questions about benefits, and we help them with doing PIP forms. I think last year we did over 1,000 PIP forms, and we're not going to be far off that again this year. We do an awful lot of basic calculations to ensure that people are getting what they are entitled to. We do check their financial situation. We won't help people who should not receive benefits. We are here to maximise those who deserve more. And over the course of the last year, you'll see the figures over here, we have put somewhere in the region of £1.8 million so far this year back into the economy. And that's working with people on very low incomes. So we know from a lot of research, those people will be spending a lot of that money locally on things they couldn't previously afford. And they do tend to spend more money in the local high streets. So a lot of that money is going back into local economies in towns, in villages in East Devon. We're doing more and more face-to-face than we have done for a long time, obviously. We are seeing, I think we'll hit about 2,000 people this year face-to-face, which for us is a great number. But we're doing a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of other work. Our numbers, we are seeing younger people, but what we're seeing more of is more people in employment. There's more people who have jobs, who have issues, and they're not coping very well with the situation. But the demographic still seems to be people in their sort of late 20s, early 30s, and people in their late 50s, early 60s are the most common ages. People starting families and people looking to retire or recently retired. We see way more women than we do men. And around about half of the people we see either have a long-term health condition or a disability. And that may be a physical health condition or a mental health condition. And again, we're seeing that creeping up year after year. More people are coming to us with mental health issues. So I'll share this later. And again, very happy from anyone at East Devon. If you want more information or more stats, always happy to write a report. In terms of working with the financial resilience team, over the course of the year so far, we've seen 52 clients that were referred by East Devon. There are more than that are referred, but not everyone engages fully. Of those who have, we've managed to generate an extra £100,000 for those people. So it's an average about £2,500 or £2,250. We don't try and write off debt. Our mission is not to get the debt down to zero. It's to help people put plans in place, try and reschedule payments. And I think, as Lorraine was saying and Tara was saying, there's a lot of schemes with utility companies in particular where you can make these arrangements. So we're not trying to just write off debt. We are trying to help people find a way forward. And actually, if they do owe the money, we help them find a way of paying back the money. Our clients come from all across East Devon. You'll see the people we've seen. The darker the colour, the more people come from there. And the top little map is where our clients come from. And the bottom map is where the index of multiple deprivation is highest. And the index of multiple deprivation is done almost on a street level and shows you where poverty should be located. It's not always 100% accurate, but it's a good indicator of where we think our clients will come from. So you'll see at the moment, one of the things that concerns me is we're not seeing many people from Cranbrook. We don't see many people from Dunkerswell or the northeast of the region. The map says we should be because the colours are darker, but we don't reach them. So that's something we're looking at, is how do we improve our outreach facilities in those areas? Because Cranbrook, we spoke to a few groups, but they would prefer evening sessions or weekend sessions, which is not so far worked with our volunteers. And Dunkerswell and the rural areas, we need to improve how we reach out to those communities as well. Number of debt clients, I thought this was interesting to say. The number of debt clients is not rising as we go through the year. It's been steady for about 3 or 4 years now. So since the start of the pandemic, we saw more people when we went into lockdown than we'd seen before, sort of as we're coming out of the last lockdown. And those numbers have kind of stayed steady. We're not seeing debt as a crisis issue. It's just an ongoing, there is a percentage of the population that are struggling with money. So it's not getting out of control, but it's staying steady, and it's still a worrying number of people. And the bottom graph is showing fuel debts. Again, were peaking sort of as we came out of lockdown. There is obviously a seasonal bias towards the fuel debts. One of the issues that's concerning us nationally and locally is there's been a lot of government help and intervention around fuel over the last 18 months, 2 years. And that's now kind of finished. So we're waiting for the autumn statement from the Chancellor in the next week or two, and to find out whether anything is going to go on. But come February or March, this could be the first winter for a couple of years where people actually receive realistic bills and suddenly find that their budgeting will no longer stretch to cover that. So I think Tara's going to be busy in February and March, and probably Lorraine as well. So we are concerned that although numbers are steady at the moment, we always have a seasonal uplift after Christmas. A lot of people will maybe stretch themselves for Christmas and they won't worry about it till the new year, and then the bills come through. This year, utility bills are going to be higher on top of that. So we are concerned that numbers are going to go up in the new year. And just to mirror that, in terms of energy bills, the blue is last year number of customers and the green is this year. So we've actually seen a fall in the number of people coming to us with debts or issues relating to energy bills, because we think of all of the assistance the government has given to those on low incomes particularly, we think our clients have been a bit protected from the rises that many of us have seen. But we are concerned that that assistance has finished and it's going to get unpleasant for a lot of people. A couple of stats, just again, interesting. Last month was the first time that we had more male clients than female clients talking to us about universal credit. Historically, we've always had about 2/3 of our clients have been female. Last month was the first time we saw more men. Don't know what that means. It was just interesting. When you look at the second graph, The orange is our normal issues, and the blue are cost of living emergency issues. You can see that the younger people are dramatically affected by specific cost of living issues. The elder people over 65 are not. Most of the things they come to see us about are routine inquiries. So the current financial crisis is impacting the young. You can also see it's impacting social tenants. So East Devon's residents are being hit very hard by the cost of living crisis. Those who are homeowners, less so. It's still having an impact, but it's significantly less. Again, something just for interest. To the left is our client profile last month. To the right is our client profile at the start of the lockdown in the pandemic. And it's pretty much unchanged. So we did see for a while that we were seeing more younger people as services moved online. We were seeing people who worked because they could access stuff during work hours rather than having to come in the office. But over the last year or so, that has returned back to pretty much where it was before. So although we did see a lot of younger people, a lot more working people, we are now going back to the stage where with the offices reopening and people coming in face to face, the client profile is returning back to that 55 to 65 age group as our most regular customers. And again, please don't try and read everything you see on the screen, but these are the issues we deal with every month. So benefits is always the big one. Debt is significant. We see a lot of people with housing issues. We are given a formula by the government where we can generate how much we've saved in terms of housing. And the number we got for 2022 was that for every £1 East Devon District Council invested in us, we saved £1.7 on the East Devon housing budget, because we are helping people to stay in accommodation. We're helping people to keep their jobs. We are helping people with minor mental well-being issues. So we are stopping or reducing, hopefully, the need for emergency accommodation and intervention by the housing team. And that's all I was going to present to you today, because I think there's a lot of statistics, a lot of information, but I basically wanted to reinforce today that our partnership with East Devon is very important to us. We work with ECO and Southwest Water and the other groups as well. There's a lot of groups working in this area, and I think in East Devon the community spirit is very strong. We work across the whole of Devon, and we can see that poverty in Devon, in East Devon, sorry, is not as deep and pervasive as it is in other areas, but there is still very much a real issue where a lot of people are struggling to get by day to day at the moment. So I think, Chair, if I leave that, any questions now or later?
Thanks very much. I think we'll go back to Millie just for a couple, and then we'll come back if that's okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just share my screen again. Let me know if you can see it this time.
Yeah, we can see that.
Perfect. Okay. So I'll just pick up where we left off. So as Sharon said at the beginning, obviously all the partners today have just given a really good overview of kind of how we're all working together with all these residents. So we thought it would just be really useful to just go over a case study where we've worked with a lot of partners. So we've picked out this study as we had some really good outcomes and some really productive work with our partners. So this resident approached our benefits team. They actually didn't come through to the financial resilience team initially because they weren't aware of the support. They approached for discretionary housing payment as they had accrued some rent arrears through leaving work and then waiting to be awarded universal credit. So obviously, for those unaware, there is obviously a time period between claiming universal credit and actually getting the payment. So they had obviously built up some debts during that time. So eventually obviously approached our benefits team, who passed them through and signposted to the Household Support Fund. They had an initial DHP award for some shortfall and then an emergency payment for food. Obviously it was identified that there was quite a lot going on with this resident. So they did get passed on to the financial resilience team by the benefits assessors who do our initial applications. And subsequent discussions just identified that this resident had been particularly struggling with his mental health. Part of the reason he'd left work was he also had a physical illness that was meaning he was unable to leave the house. And he was feeling, massively overwhelmed at the prospect of having to not only deal with his ongoing bills now that his income had changed, but also trying to deal with the debts that had built up whilst he was, struggling with work, having lower wages, and then eventually leaving work and having those few weeks where he didn't have any income at all. So obviously the fact he was feeling so overwhelmed kind of meant we were able to come in and just kind of discuss everything that was needed. So during those discussions, one of the problems was that he was struggling with his energy bills. So he had very high energy bills and he was struggling to pay these, and he'd also built up some arrears. So in that instance, he was referred to Tara's team at Exeter Community Energy for some help with energy saving measures, the energy efficiency advice. And they were able to sort of discuss his bills with him, help him out, and actually enabled him to get a grant from British Gas, which wrote off his arrears. So that left him with a bit of a clean slate there. Same with South West Water. It was identified that he had some water debt, and again, without his universal credit in payment, was struggling to afford his ongoing bill. So he was referred over to the South West Water Care team, so Lorraine and her team, and he was popped onto their restart scheme and their water care tariff, which Lorraine obviously was just talking about. So that enabled him to sort of feel like he was combating his debt a little bit, as well as obviously being able to manage his ongoing liabilities. And during these discussions with the resident, it was also identified that he wasn't receiving his full benefit entitlement. So not only was he waiting for his universal credit, but across the working with him, obviously as the universal credit got awarded and he sort of was getting his standard element on his universal credit, he wasn't actually getting anything else. He wasn't getting any limited capability for work on his universal credit, and he was also only getting the daily living component of personal independence payments, so of his PIP, when obviously he was housebound and he couldn't leave the house. So he wasn't getting anything for his mobility. So again, we referred to Citizens Advice, who obviously have their specialists who help complete forms. So he popped in his limited capability for work form and applied for the additional PIP element. He was initially turned down for limited capability for work and work-related activity, and was awarded just the limited capability for work, which basically doesn't add any extra money onto the universal credit award, and means that he would still have to do things to prepare for a job. So we were able to sort of liaise with Citizens Advice, again, because the resident was feeling quite overwhelmed about this, and they were able to help him put in an appeal. So typically we see a lot of people get turned down for benefits and they think that's it. But obviously we know from working with Citizens Advice, we are able to help them and refer them for appeals to try and get those benefits in place. So he subsequently did get awarded his limited capability for work-related activity on his universal credit, which boosted his income, and he also secured the extra element for mobility on PIP through the work with Citizens Advice, which he otherwise probably wouldn't have access because he just wasn't sure where to go. He also had his limited capability for work-related activity award backdated. So in the working and the ongoing working, obviously it took some time, and then it was able to be backdated to when his circumstances began, really. So that was really, really helpful in terms of collaboratively working. We also, just in terms of internally, identified a rent shortfall alongside his arrears. So we were able to use, as before, we have access to the discretionary pots. So we were able to use a discretionary housing payment to bring his rent balance to zero, whilst he was obviously sorting out his benefits, coming on top of bills, everything like that. And we were able to assist with a rent shortfall payment as well, just for a few months whilst he got back on his feet. And we also identified on his council tax account that he had also accrued some council tax arrears at the same time as struggling with his other bills. Again, he was just feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So we did our income and expenditure checks with him. And actually it was decided that he wasn't in a position to be paying us back arrears as well as his ongoing liabilities. So we used the Exceptional Hardship Fund to clear his previous council tax arrears as well. So kind of just giving him a fresh start, a clean slate on all of his bills, got his benefits in place to enable him to, you know, going forward, make sure he could manage. So just at the bottom is just some outcomes from this one. So his overall weekly income was increased by £216.09. His expenditure did increase as it was by £30.28 a week, but this was because previously he hadn't been paying all his ongoing liabilities because he was in a deficit. So once his actual liabilities for his ongoing bills were adjusted based on, you know, water care, based on his debts being wiped, based on his council tax liabilities, he was spending £30.28 more a week, but every week he was actually £185.81 better off. So he was in a position that actually he could do his food shop, he could pay his energy bills, he could pay his water, because he had these additional benefits coming in. So that was just kind of to highlight really how we try and collaboratively work with our partners, and also how the discretionary funding and our work enables us to do that. So, you know, being able to help with the discretionary housing payment and the Exceptional Hardship Fund and his emergency payments for food, whilst all these other organisations are working with him as well, enabled everyone to be as productive as they could and to get the best outcomes. So that we just thought was a really good case study, just enabling someone who, you know, started off in a situation where he was feeling very overwhelmed, really struggling, and actually then by the end of the work, once we've worked with him for, you know, a few months, everyone's been able to be involved, sort of really holistically look at his case, and in the end he obviously is significantly financially better off than he was when he first approached us. So next is just a little bit of feedback. So obviously residents quite often are very appreciative of the work we're doing. We do keep the cases, like I say, we do try and see them through as much as we can. And we find that particularly with vulnerable residents, that really goes a long way, in that not only do we feel that they are going to be able to manage going forward, but they actually feel that they're in a lot better position to manage. So a lot of the time people are just really, really appreciative, and feel like it's really benefited them having someone actually listen and sort of point them in the right direction and work with them as thoroughly as we can. So, you know, it's really a fulfilling role, to be able to make sure we are helping people as much as possible. And then next, I believe Sharon is going to speak a little bit about the team going forward.
Lovely, thank you, Millie. So looking forward at what the team will be working on over the next 6 months. We're shortly going to be starting work on administering the next stage of the targeted support from the Household Support Fund. All of the allocated money for the first 6 months, so that was April to the end of October, was spent. And while we're working on that targeted support, we are keeping our open application open, so residents can apply for one-off payments if they need support there. Alongside that, we have 2 other projects ongoing at the moment that we're working on, very nearly ready to go live with those. The first one, we've got the Action on Poverty Fund, which we're working with Economic Development on, and that's providing some loft insulation for households we know struggling the most. We've got lots of other cases that will go through the normal channels. Because there is so many, we've identified 92 households that we're going to be offering them that support directly. From a very quick look at the cases we've identified, we do expect that there's going to be a lot of other work coming out of those. So that's financial resilience work, and all of our partners' involvement with. The second project is a pilot we're working with private sector housing and our climate change officer, again for low-income households who've not been able to get funding from other available sources. So some of the schemes available don't cover all the work required, or other work needs to be done first before the funding can be accessed. That work's being funded by our Economic Vulnerability Fund and some of our Cost of Living Hardship Funds, if it's required. And that pilot, we're going to be looking at 10 cases so we can do the learning. And if successful and there's the opportunity to scale that up, we'll be bringing those findings back to the panel, probably some point in the next financial year. Within Revs and Benefits, myself and the Council Tax Manager have just started putting our training pack together for the Vulnerable Debt Toolkit, so that we can get all of our benefit and council tax officers trained on supporting our residents. That's going to ensure we distinguish those who need support to pay any outstanding council tax and housing benefit overpayments, make sure that they get the support they need. And we're working towards being up and running with that toolkit by the start of the next financial year. And lastly, we're going to be continuing our learning journey to help shape the resilience work going forward, whilst continuing to work with our partners and the voluntary sector so that we can continue to help support those most vulnerable residents and really help them to become more resilient in the future. So hopefully today we've been able to show how we are all working together for the benefit of our residents. I'd like to thank all of our partners who came along this morning and continue working with the team. It's made a massive difference. And I think that's about it. So open up for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sharon. Yeah, I'll really echo that really interesting set of presentations. So just thank you to all the speakers. I'm conscious that I haven't asked for any questions for Dean. So does anyone have any questions for Citizens Advice before we open it up wider? Councillor Faithfull, over to you.
Mine is actually it's not for Dean, it's for, yeah, leave it for now.
Councillor Chapman, we'll go to you next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Very good reports. A lot of good work going on. Can I ask Dean, we're coming up to the Christmas season. We always have problems with loan sharks in Exmouth, I know. Is there anything we can do or anything any of the other teams are doing that can stop people going to these loan sharks? Because obviously with the fuel prices and things like that as well, the last thing they need is after Christmas having to pay back loan sharks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Just come in whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think we ran a campaign last year about loan sharks. So the National Citizens Advice did. And I know the police commissioner was running a campaign, I think, about the same time. We don't have any specific campaigns running at the moment. But what we are trying to do is we're trying to set up a preventative debt team, because at the moment we wait for people to come to us with issues. What we want to do is we're taking on a debt apprentice, and we've got 2 work experience students, and we're going to employ a second person to deal specifically with debt. We want to start being proactive and getting out in the community and giving people more information and advice, getting into schools and colleges and wherever we can to give people more information on how to manage a budget, how to avoid pitfalls such as credit cards, loan sharks, payday loans, whatever it might be. Because definitely that message does need to get out. There are still people falling to what becomes ever more sophisticated and well done scams. So yes, there is certainly a need for that, and we are looking over the next year or so and doing a lot more work in preventative action.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you. Councillor Goodman, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I'm a bit confused. Are we now going straight into questions for anybody, or are we concentrating on Dean? Because I've got a general question rather than one for Dean.
We can open it up as much as possible.
I'm not offended.
First of all, thank you for all those presentations. And I'm not sure who might be able to answer this question or might have to go away and do a bit of research. The key thing really is people want help, hopefully for a short period of time. And I'm just wondering, have we got any details of the people we've helped, say, in the last year? What percentage now no longer need help because you've put some foundations in to improve the way they now operate in terms of finances, etc.?
Sharon, do you want to take that one?
Yes, thank you. So I do have data. I'm not able to provide it right at this moment, I'm afraid. We have been collecting the data. There's been some technical difficulties, but we have been collecting all of that. And hopefully at one of the future poverty panels, we will be able to present our outcomes. It's been a bit challenging getting data out, and that is purely for technical reasons. So yeah, we are working on fixing it.
Thank you. And Chair, I just, when you ask for any interest, I am working very closely with the Sidmouth Valley Food Bank and with Sharon on the Christmas appeal for Sidmouth. Should I have announced that as an interest at the start of the meeting? Because I didn't.
I think Sarah's probably noted that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, can I answer that question?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the projects we're starting is we've got an advisor who's nearing the end of her training, and what we're going to do with her is, rather than her just taking phone calls or whatever, is to work specifically with vulnerable people we've identified who are not good at managing their own finances, and try and spend more time and do a deeper dive, get things better organized, help them set up direct debits, help them organize online banking, get them a calendar or a diary of things they need to do. So we do recognise there are some people that just a visit to our office and a quick bit of advice is not going to be enough. So we are launching a project to try and give more detailed and deeper, significant help to those who really need it.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, we'll go to you next, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to EDDC and our partners, everybody who's spoken today. What a fabulous amount of information there is out there and help. My question is, I know we have a communications, digital services and engagement team. How are we making sure that everybody knows where to go for help, and how we as councillors can help make sure that information gets out there to the private sector, the tenanted sector, everybody who needs help? And is there like a one-stop place that everybody can go to and find out what they need? And happy to talk to somebody with regards to this moving forward with, suggestions on how we can do this if there isn't anything, or if there is, how we could improve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon, again, can we go to you on that one?
Yep. So we've got our financial help hub on our internet pages. There's lots of links. We link into a few different websites, including Stop Loan Sharks, ECO, all the different external agencies as well there. And we work with comms, so every so often we do promotion. We do send out social media posts, specifically around very important times like Christmas, where those agencies will provide their information that they've built specifically for periods like Christmas, and we'll help promote that work as well. So we do probably have a bit more work and need a bit more updating ready for this for this winter. But that hub page there is a good start. And social media posts, I guess, and also I think we've done press releases as well to reach those who are digitally excluded.
Just coming back, and you just said some people are digitally excluded. I was wondering if there was a booklet that could be sent out to everybody, and certainly how can we as councillors help disseminate this information? I mean, we've got our parish council meetings, town council meetings, but is there more we can do?
I know that we have put stuff out in our Housing Matters magazine, but there may be something that we could do for our private housing tenants, and that's something that we could possibly bring back to a future meeting.
Okay, I'd certainly like to talk about it some more, please. Yeah.
Dean, you want to come back in as well?
Yeah, and I think what Councillor Martin's described is pretty much what Citizens Advice do, is we will answer any question on any subject, and being part of the national network means that we do actually have a system that lists all these services nationally. So wherever the people come from, We can tell you where the local mental health support is, or financial resilience, or the food bank, or debt advice. And we are happy to take any question from anyone. I say we get an awful lot of people walk in the office and just say, when's the next bus? And people coming in saying, here is a bin bag full of letters. I've got no idea what's in them. I'm too scared. So we'll take anything from one end to the other. So we're always happy for people to walk in and ask what sounds like a stupid question about who do I talk to, where do I go? We usually know the answer, and we're happy to take them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Faithful, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just curious if anyone of these groups does anything in the way of support and advice in basic spending of the money, like basic cooking and things like that. Because you go down a supermarket and you can blow an awful lot of money if you buy the wrong products, or you buy these ready meals and things like that, when you can make a decent meal for a darn sight less if you do your shopping right and do your proper traditional cooking. And also, is there any comments about recommended house temperatures? Because I did a bit of it's a green climate change thingy, and actually climate change, they want us to keep our house temperatures down. You get brownie points if you got 14 or below, and I don't know what people's normal house temperatures are, but if if we're keeping our house temperatures lower, then you're doing two things: you're reducing your heating bill and you're saving the planet, because that's what they want. Anyway, Chair.
Dean, you want to come back on that?
The first question with food, Project Food are the people that do that. I know they're up and running in Axminster and I think Seaton and Exmouth, and possibly I know they're coming to Ottery Hospital soon as well. But they are funded, I think, by DCC. I don't know if EDDC contribute to them or not, but they do exactly that.
Fantastic. I don't see any other hands. I feel bad just noting this report. I just want to say how great the presentations were and how invaluable, I think. So thank you to all the speakers for today. It really has been eye-opening. So thank you. So let's move on to the next report, which is the East Devon Poverty Action Annual Review. And Helen Wareham, we're going over to you.
And it has been a really inspiring morning. I feel very lucky to have been able to listen to these presentations. I'll just share
Helen, apologies. I think there's something wrong with your mic. It's coming in and out. That's better.
That might be the internet connection. Is it okay?
No, sorry.
I'm not on mute. So
Helen, we can hear you. It just cuts in and out. It sounds very muffled.
I don't know what else to do. I'm not on mute. I can see and hear perfectly. So
That's better.
are you sure? So I'll just share my So thank you all for letting me come to your meeting today. I'm here to present the annual review of the first year, really, of the poverty working actions. So this covers the review for 2022 and 2023. Just as a reminder, the Poverty Working Panel developed a poverty strategy and an action plan which was published in 2021. It was a very ambitious strategy, and the plan itself is very ambitious. So the aim was to partly celebrate and to share good work, to inspire us all. And just to note, it was never intended that we would do everything in that first year or put too much onerous extra work on the teams. So what we've done is worked hard to review that progress. So as a quick reminder of my cyclical process, which I trot out from time to time, we have an action plan which we look forward to what we're going to do. We perform the work, we monitor what we do, and then what I'm presenting now is the review of what we how we progressed. So the action plan was structured around 5 objectives with these themes: helping people on low incomes, strengthening families and communities, promoting an inclusive economy, addressing the high cost of housing, and finally, improving health outcomes for people on low incomes. So teams across the council work together, as we've heard so beautifully this morning, and with other partners to help reduce the effects of poverty. And as I say, it wasn't expected that we would do everything in that first year. So what we did over the course of the year was services were invited to submit updates on their activities. So we did presentations to the panel of those progress updates back in October 22, in March and June 23. And what I've done now is pull together a final annual review for 22-23 based on those previous submissions and activities written in the service plans. And I've kept the annual review in the 5 themes that we've just reminded ourselves about. So the annual review itself that Sarah will have shared is 60 pages. It is a very big document. So what I've done on these next 2 slides is just pick out an example or 2, really to whet your appetite and encourage you not necessarily to read the review from cover to cover, but just dip in and out at the services that you particularly want to know a bit more about. So I've mentioned the number of Leisure East Devon facilities used by people with concession memberships. We've talked about public health funerals by our environmental protection team. Private sector housing, you've heard from Jodie this morning. The review covers the grants and financial assistance that they've provided. And again, you've heard this morning from Libby and Sharon's team. The review covers work that the finance teams have done on all these different grants that are available. Other things that have happened, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities funding available, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Our growth team have a lot of funding from that. Our housing team have made successful bids for Rough Sleepers initiative. Lots more work by housing with their surgeries at community centres. And then I've covered the planning team, their work with Exeter City Council and other districts. They've procured consultants to work on an economic vision for the area. And then internally, our HR team have done work to implement our rewards review for staff.
Helen, sorry to stop you, but it does keep cutting in and out. Maybe it may be a bandwidth issue. I'm sorry to say, it might be worth going off video and just speaking, doing your presentation that way. That might improve it.
Switch my video off because I'd have to close the presentation, I think, to do that. Okay. So just drawing my presentation to a close, and to reflect and things that you might want to discuss, the purpose of this very big review is to help demonstrate the contribution and care that our services have made towards poverty reduction. I've given examples and hopefully shown how we're making best use of resources. It's fair to say that the actions from the action plan, original one, aren't all completed, and that wasn't the expectation. It will take time. What we decided back in June, moving the cyclical process forward, the panel agreed that we would do a simplified action plan for 23 and 24, and that has been published. We talked about that in June. So what I'm hoping is that moving forward, the process of reporting back on actions will be simplified. The action plan does still use the 5 same themes, but it's neater, I think, in what it's asking us to do. So I'm really sorry that I understand you haven't been able to hear very well. I've been able to hear and see everything this morning. So I suppose finally the next steps are to know whether you're happy with the annual review. And if you do approve it, we'll arrange for it to be published online alongside the action plan for 23-24. And could I ask Councillor Ledger if the panel would note that we've presented this review? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Helen. I'll open it up. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Goodman, you want to come in, please? Helen, is it okay if you stop sharing now, please?
Councillor Ledger, I'm really sorry. I'm trying, but it's frozen. I don't know if that's something that Sarah can do. I will keep looking for it.
There we go. That's done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Goodman, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. It was disappointing we couldn't hear what you were saying, but I think we got the general gist of it. I think it's always disappointing, isn't it, when you have an action plan that was developed over 2 years ago, and then you review it, and because of different circumstances, one's not actually achieved many of the actions. Perhaps it was 75 actions, and I may be the only one, but I read every single one last night, and I would say I think a lot of it now is business as usual. A lot of it, I think we miss some because there's so many. And you've actually highlighted some of the key ones. Some of the excellent work that's been done is lost because it's such a weighty document. And I do think going forward, having less actions will be a much better way to deliver, because my concern with the document, and I know, as I've said, it's 2 or 3 years old, it's an awful lot of work to put together in the first place by officers, an awful lot, and then checking all those and making sure that they've developed them or not, as the case may be, is a lot of work. And I think going forward, hopefully, as you quite rightly say, we can change it going forward.
Thanks for that, Councillor Goodman. Helen, do you want to come back in?
Yes, just to remind the panel that we do have a much more streamlined action plan for the current year. So this year that we're in, the action plan is much slicker. So it will be easier for us to report against it, less onerous for the different teams.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments from the panel? No. So are members happy that we know? Could I get a proposal for that, please, just so that it's official that we approve it and oppose it? So Councillor Goodman's proposing it. Can I just get a seconder from someone? Don't all jump at once. Councillor Smith. And can we take that to a vote, please?
Yes, please can I ask members to vote using your green ticks. to vote in favour or your red crosses to vote against.
How do you do that?
Okay, Chair, we have 6 green ticks in favour.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you so much, Helen, for putting that all together. I know how much of a task it is, so I just want to put my thanks to you personally on liaising with all the services and getting them all the information into one document and reviewing it. I know how much time it's taken of yours, so yeah, I just want to know how much it is appreciated.
Thank you.
So that brings our meeting to a close. So I'd like to thank everyone today for joining and participating, including any of the members of the public that are watching online. Can I remind all of those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being live streamed, and until then your comments may